think it might have been during a stream as of recently, in which I think it's actually very cool because what we're gonna be talking about today in this video was discovered essentially together, because whenever I picked up this weapon in stream, I was immediately thinking to myself, well, I only need to pick this up because I'm running out of ammo in my other weapons, so I wanna make sure that I can stay alive, keep my streak going, and then whatever happens, happens. Well, it turns out this was an FG42 class with a Reflex Sight on it, and that's something that really, as of recently, I haven't used either of those. I haven't used the FG42 since I got it gold. As I'm asked many times during those streams, am I going for chrome camo? That's sort of the way that I go about the game, is that if I complete a weapon, I don't really use it all that much, if really ever, until I end up needing to circle back around or just want to try it out for some random occasion once again. And then also the Reflex Sight, I'll be totally honest with you, as of up until a couple of days ago, I didn't use it on any single weapon throughout the entire couple of months the game has already been live. So this weapon was a random occurrence in which I picked up something that I was not used to really at all in terms of trying out, but I absolutely loved it. And I think it's been one of the biggest refreshes I've needed to my gameplay and class setups as of late. So in this one, I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about this little class setup that I have here for this, and of course it might be something that is just placebo effect, and I think honestly it might be that in its entirety, but being that it is something that it is different than what I'm so used to, it was a nice little step back in adjustment of the pace in which I have to play the game at for this to work out incredibly well. I've always been that person that just runs into everything, but I feel like having this on, it's allowed me to take a little bit more of a mid-range approach to the game, and therefore a little bit slower of an approach, but also something that is still just as worthwhile in how you end up playing the game and what it can reap the benefits of while trying this class setup out. Now, as for just getting right into it, firstly, let's jump in with a division. This is something in which, firstly, I've been kind of experimenting around with different classifications of weapons in different divisions as of late, but this is one that I like to keep strictly to infantry just because you end up getting the extra magazines. The strafing speed is something I find absolutely necessary and crucial for rifles, and then of course you also get an extra attachment, which with this case we are going to end up using primed again. I know that's something that a lot of people wonder, why is this the only basic training I use essentially? But having 4 attachments is something that I think is killer on the rifles, and so that is where we're going to be going with that. But as for the primary, the FG42, before we jump into the attachments, I want to talk a little bit about the FG because it is something that recently we ended up getting a buff to it in the sense of bringing it up to speed a little bit more so than what it was before. If you guys remember, it was nerfed tremendously after a few MLG events and a lot of the pros' feedback saying that it was too overpowered, and therefore the fire rate and recoil ended up getting nerfed. And if I do remember correctly, I did come into contact with a lot of people running only FG42s. It was essentially the new bar or BAR after that weapon ended up getting nerfed, so it was one that everybody used. It was the meta weapon, but as of recently, and I'm talking probably about a month now at this point in time, we ended up getting a slight buff to the FG42 in which they said it was a slight fire rate increase, and when I say slight, I mean it's very slight, to the point where it's almost not noticeable unless you go and watch frame by frame the ammo counter and actually keeping up with seeing the matchup of each shot. And as for the recoil, well, that's one that I don't really play around with too much. I find it very manageable on the FG42 as is. You'll notice that in this class setup, we won't even run grip on this, so it is very manageable. You might have some trouble at long range, but for what it's worth, it is at where it's supposed to be in that mid-range category, something that is very controllable and very easy to manage. So to me, I think that that's one that you can overlook. But as for the actual attachments themselves, we run once again the Reflex Sight, extended mags, high caliber, and rapid fire, and we'll break down all of those here for you guys. Once again, the Reflex Sight I think might be placebo effect, and honestly, when thinking about it in an objective manner, I can't see it being anything other than placebo, but it was something, once again, was a nice change of pace that I felt as of recently, and get a little bit more accuracy than compared to what the FG42 iron sights may have offered. And though personally I didn't mind the iron sights themselves, once again, this was a nice little way to just change the pace on how I approach the FG overall. And that's one in which having that more visibility while aiming down sight, the iron sight did admittedly cut into your field of view a little bit, and though not much compared to what other weapons may offer in that sense, it was still something that, though manageable, was kind of annoying. As for high caliber, I explain this one every single time during every class setup and every breakdown. High caliber is one that I think is probably the most crucial thing you can put on any rifle, and therefore I run it on pretty much every rifle class that I end up having, and that is because it increases headshot lethality. So the way that it breaks down is that essentially if you end up getting one headshot, multipliers will work out that you need pretty much 2 extra shots at the bare minimum in which you can end up getting that kill. So one headshot and maybe say 2 chest shots, 2 shoulder shots, 2 neck shots, whatever it may be. But if you end up getting one headshot, you'll end up needing those 2 extra shots to finish it off and how the damage works. But if you end up having high caliber, this is where it changes the dynamic of that, because high caliber increases that headshot lethality to the point where you're only going to need 1 extra shot rather than 2. So it changes up entirely how you can approach a gunfight, because if you end up aiming high, well then you're obviously going to get a great percentage off if your accuracy is on point for how many kills you'll end up getting with high caliber. And you'll see in the gameplays in the background that there are many in which I have a lot of headshots, if I'm not mistaken, assuming that I edit the right clips in that I think that I'm going to. But while playing with this, I just remember getting a ton of headshots, and that is because not only one is this thing a headshot machine as is, but high caliber really helps to make those quick kills and get them off as fast as possible. Once again, hitting 1 shot and 2 shots if you can control the recoil, well, the headshot is already the most lethal spot to end up aiming at, and if you end up having something that can increase that lethality, well, of course, it's a no-brainer in my books. As for the extended mags, this is something in which I just found the FG42, the base ammunition in it I didn't think was enough, and therefore the extended mags kind of compensates a little bit for that. It gives you extra shots in your reserve as well, which is always nice because the magazines are larger, so while your standard soldier can carry X amount of magazines, that same number will be translated into having more shots because you end up having more in each magazine if you end up using this without infantry. With infantry ranked up, of course, you still have max ammunition to start off with, so it doesn't really matter all that much in the terms of extra shots, but per magazine, of course, it helps out tremendously. I can get off maybe 2 more kills before I have to reload, which is great. And speaking of reloading, fun little quirk here, if you end up actually watching and listening to the reload animation, you end up chambering your magazine into the FG42, and it makes the completion audio as if you are inserting the magazine into the rifle, and then it ends up cocking it back actually before the animation completes. So if you guys have never noticed that, take a look at that next time. And the final thing that I run on this is the rapid fire, which might sound counterintuitive compared to the sense that we just had the extended mags attachment on there so that we can end up getting more shots in each magazine and having a little bit more there. But to me, I think it works well because though you might still be able to get off 2 to 3 more kills per se in each magazine, it is something that it will go by at a relative time frame compared to that of a standard magazine with the standard rate of fire. But the rate of fire increase is something that once again puts it a little bit ahead and shoulders above the base weapon because of the increase in the fire rate that we can end up seeing. Like again, we earlier talked about how the base increase to the weapon itself via buff was nothing very substantial, but this allows it to compete with other rifles in the classification that may have higher rates of fire than that of just the standard FG42. So with this, you're going to be able to compete against more rifles. You're going to need to control the recoil a little bit more and be conscious of that recoil pattern, but overall, I think it's a great choice. Now, as for once again, the basic training, we use primed and the P08 as the secondary and the frag grenade as the lethal on that, though we don't use the secondary, or I guess we do use the frag enough to the sense where we can just chuck a nade in, flush somebody out, the usual thing that we end up explaining with most of my class setups. But as for the weapon itself and the class setup overall, once again, this was one that I had to change my playstyle a little bit. I had to take this at a more slower approach than that of what I would be used to in running and gunning into every situation. Jumping around corners, running corners, whatever it may be, this specific class setup really made me look at how I was playing and made me adjust in that sense of slowing down my game and being able to pick off people left, right, and center. There were probably 3-4 games yesterday right after I started using this consecutively for every single game, trying to get some footage for it and saying, you know what, I really like this. 3 or 4 games in which I was probably, I don't know, maybe 2-3 gun kills off of a V2 rocket in a row. So this thing was, once again, a beast for me at the time. I was having so much fun with it, and still I haven't had really any game in which it wasn't a success story. So that said, I want you guys to try this out if you guys have not done so already. And of course, while again the Reflex itself might be a little bit of a placebo effect, and one that might just be that refresh that I needed to take a fresher and slower approach to the game, the rest of the class setup is by far one of the best things that I can run on an FG42. And once again, coming back to the FG42, I really do enjoy this weapon still, even though I haven't used it all that much since I got it gold, probably a month or two back now at this point in time. But it was nice to come back, it was nice to revisit it, and it was nice to change up the pace of the gameplay via this class setup and a couple of specific attachments. So that said, I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this? Of course, if you guys try this out, make sure you tweet me your thoughts, let me know your results, all that good stuff in the comment section down below and over on Twitter. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you guys give it a shot. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding best class setups, tips, tricks, news, information, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. Also, yesterday we started to promo this a little bit, but if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, I'm trying to get a little bit more active over there. So if you guys want to connect with me, that's another avenue to do so as well. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Mine is an espresso. Take care and peace.